Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for being with us. We begin tonight with the election results of a very tight local riding. The race was so tight that it is now being challenged. CBC's Pratyush Thayal breaks it down.
The Liberal candidate who ran in last week's federal election in Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore riding is asking for a recount. Elections Canada has already validated the election of Conservative candidate Kathy Borrelli over Liberals' Eric Kuzmichuk. On election night, the difference was of 233 votes, but validation process brought it down to 77 votes. While it's a close margin, it does not meet the threshold set by Elections Canada for an automatic recount. But now, the Liberal candidate Eric Kuzmichuk questions why some ballots were rejected and is asking for a judicial recount.
We have evidence that there were, out of the 567 ballots that were rejected, that many of those ballots were wrongfully rejected. We feel very strongly about that.
There were more than 500 rejected ballots in the riding, which Kuzmichuk points out is one of the highest in the country. A representative for Conservative winner Kathy Borrelli says that she will not be commenting on the matter until the court's decision is made. This political expert says every vote counts, and it's reasonable for Kuzmichuk to ask for a recount.
And he can simply say, given the verification, there were so many votes that were not allocated, or for whatever reason, that's probably a good enough case. So then it becomes a judicial recount.
Kuzmichuk has held the seat here since 2019, and he says there will be a hearing with a decision on the recount Friday.
We are 100% committed, absolutely unequivocally, to respect the decision of this and the outcome of this judicial recount.
Pratyush Thayal, CBC News, Windsor.
I'm Dawson Chen outside the Windsor Assembly Plant. And inside, there are no production employees. The plant is not operating this week. And the company says the production pause isn't to do with tariffs. According to a Stellantis spokesperson, the temporary shutdown is due to production adjustments as Chrysler wraps up its building of 2025 model year vehicles. The company is preparing to launch the 2026 versions of the Pacifica, Grand Caravan Voyager, and Dodge Charger Daytona, which are all built in Windsor. This is a second break in a month. The plant was closed for 2 weeks in April. Stellantis said that measure was necessary because of the auto tariffs announced by the Donald Trump administration. Other measures included the temporary layoffs of 900 workers at U.S. plants. But the Windsor Assembly Plant's 4,500 production employees returned to their jobs on April 21st. Now those workers must once again wait for further information. Their union, Unifor Local 444, says details about the weeks to come will be announced when they're available. But for the week of May 5th, only workers in skilled trades and their apprentices have been asked to report for their shifts. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Our eagle-eyed tower camera operator captured a rare sight today. That is a peregrine falcon. The fastest animal on Earth landed nearby for a rest. Now, these apex predators, they love to perch at high altitudes, and they do it to watch for prey like pigeons and other birds. And when they see one, they pounce, reaching speeds upwards of 320 kilometers per hour. And now we bring in Colette Kennedy to give us that bird's eye view of the weather forecast. Colette.
I was going to look up the speed, so I'm glad that you just gave it to me. Oh my gosh, that is incredible. And that was great that we got to see that image. I love it. Okay, I was last week talking about this area of low pressure and upper low, and here it still is in our forecast and having an impact. Now, I did forecast that. We expected it. It's kind of cut off from everything else. The jet stream well to the north are not really pushing it along, and we continue to get these areas of rain or even some thunderstorms rotating around it and coming back into our skies. So seeing that tonight, plus some fog where you won't be seeing so well, 12 degrees, and tomorrow still some wet weather, which I'll go into in more detail, 17 for our high.
Sounds good. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Let's turn now to the sexual assault trial of 5 former Canadian World Junior hockey players. The complainant, known only as EM, continued her testimony today. CBC's Ali Chiasson reports from the courthouse in London, Ontario. But first, a quick warning for viewers that the story includes details of alleged sexual assault that viewers may find disturbing.
The woman known only as EM says things took a turn in Michael McLeod's hotel room after she had consensual sex with him. Quote, "I wasn't sure why he was dressed already and on the phone. I was waiting to see what was happening." She testified that she was uncomfortable and confused when other men from the hockey team entered the room. She recalls 7 or 8 men being in the room at one time. She alleges they towered over her, pressuring her to perform sex acts on them. Quote, "It seemed like the only safe thing to do was to give them what they were wanting." The Crown's case in this trial includes 2 short videos of EM saying it was all consensual. EM says it was not a reflection of how she was feeling and does not remember either of the videos being recorded.
A lot of people still have fixed in their brains that idea that no means no. And they think that is the barrier, the baseline for consent, but that's not accurate.
Toronto lawyer Anna Matas, who is not involved in this case, explains that consent can't be a blanket statement and, according to Canadian law, must be specific to each act or person.
If the situation changes, if another person is added in, or if there is a new act that is introduced, you have to get consent again.
The court saw a series of messages between McLeod and the complainant in the following days. He writes, "Did you go to the police after Sunday?" She replied to McLeod, "I talked to my mom about it, and she called, I think, but I told her not to. I don't want anything bad to come of it, so I told her to stop." McLeod wrote back, "You said you were having fun."
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
All 5 of the accused hockey players have pleaded not guilty to sexual assault.
What do we want? Justice!
They were met with people from sexual assault survivor groups chanting as they walked into court.
It's extraordinarily rare for a victim of sexual assault to come forward and make a report to police and then for it to make it to trial.
We are here to show EM that she is not alone.
The judge had to remind the jury not to be swayed by the supporters and that they are only to consider the evidence and testimony. EM's testimony continues tomorrow with cross-examination from defense attorneys. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Ontario has drawn up a list of its priority nation-building projects and is asking Prime Minister Carney to streamline their approval. But opposition critics are slamming the inclusion of the controversial 401 tunnel. Queen's Park reporter Sean Jeffords has the story.
We know that 50% of the GDP in Ontario is right here in Toronto, and we need to get the 401 moving. It's at full capacity, even at midnight.
Doug Ford on the growing congestion on Ontario's largest and busiest highway. And that's why the Premier says he's put the proposed tunnel under the 401 on a priority list. Ford says it's a vital nation-building project, deserving of streamlined approvals.
We can't think anymore now about a year down the road. We have to think of 50 years down the road. We know through the studies that all 400 series highways will be filled in the next 10 years. So we have to think about moving forward.
The Premier first pitched the controversial plan last summer and doubled down on it during the provincial election. He wants the tunnel to run from Mississauga in the west to Scarborough in the east. Critics say it will cost tens of billions and question whether it would solve the congestion problem. This comes after a meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney in March, where he asked for the list of projects. Ford has also included the Ring of Fire and GO 2.0 on that list.
The number one priority is the Ring of Fire, one project, one review, which is absolutely critical.
Opposition critics were quick to pan the tunnel's inclusion.
Honestly, this is outrageous and ridiculous.
I'm not sure the Fantasy Tunnel will be on the Prime Minister's list of priorities.
I just think it is ridiculous that the Premier even suggests that his Fantasy Tunnel is somehow a project that's going to stimulate the economy.
But the province's transportation minister says the government can build big projects. And despite the skepticism, it intends to push ahead with the tunnel.
7 years ago, when we released our plan on $70 billion over for public transit, the subway lines across the province, I think a lot of people doubted that we could get shovels in the ground. We've got shovels in the ground on those. And look, it's time to build.
The Ford government said last week that it's moving ahead with the study of the tunnel. It'll take 2 years to complete, and it does contemplate the possibility that the tunnel may not be feasible. That despite the government's desire to push ahead with the project. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is getting ready for Tuesday's high-stakes meeting with Donald Trump. This is his first official trip to the White House after the Liberals won last week's election. Kate McKenna reports.
Prime Minister Mark Carney on his way to meet with the president. It's his first big test since winning the election.
He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal.
In an interview that aired Sunday, U.S. President Donald Trump doubled down on his rhetoric that Canada would be better off as an American state.
When I look down at that without that artificial line that was drawn with a ruler many years ago, it was just an artificial line, goes straight across. You don't even realize what a beautiful country it would be.
Carney was elected in part to deal with Trump's repeated threats of tariffs and annexation.
Look, I go there with the expectation of constructive, difficult, but constructive discussions. That's the spirit of the conversations that the president and I had.
Well, I actually think there's a real opportunity for a U.S.-Canada reset here. And what I mean by that is tensions were clearly at an all-time high with former Prime Minister Trudeau. The relationship seemed to have improved after Trudeau stepped down and Carney took over as Prime Minister.
The agenda includes turning the page and trying to smooth out the trade relationship between the countries.
We would all love to see, a stop to tariffs as they're continuing just to cause an immense amount of uncertainty, a chill, if not a freeze, across the business community. However, realistically and practically speaking, I think tomorrow is about a reset.
My hope and our hope is that this will be the continuation of a productive conversation and a productive relationship between our two countries.
Prime Minister Mark Carney has said he wants to negotiate a new economic and security relationship with the United States. Some cabinet ministers will also be joining him on his trip to Washington, and he's been clear in the past, Canada will never become the 51st state. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Hollywood is the latest industry being targeted by Donald Trump's trade war. He's promising to slap a 100% tariff on all movies made outside the United States. And the threat puts Canada's so-called Hollywood North directly in the crosshairs. CBC's Jamie Strachan has more on how the latest salvo could impact the film industry here.
First rule is attack, attack, attack. When it comes to the movies and Donald Trump, few know more than Toronto producer Greg Denny.
I spent 2 years of my life focused on Donald Trump.
Denny produced the Trump biopic The Apprentice, shot mostly in Toronto. He says the president's latest tariff target of 100% on foreign-made movies miscalculates and misunderstands Canada's role.
From a Hollywood studio system standpoint, they depend on Canada.
This latest Trump plot twist proposes putting tariffs on all content shot outside of the U.S., longing for an era when most movies were made in Hollywood.
It's an industry now that's it's really left, it's abandoned the USA where it started. And we'll get it back.
Denny's latest project, the big name, big money feature Ready or Not, Here I Come, is shooting in Toronto, employing hundreds. He says movies, unlike steel or wood, are products made up by pieces and talent from around the world.
You can't just slap a tariff on the content of film and television. It's not easy. And, there's so many working parts.
Like a lot of things out of Washington these days, this latest threat, easy to dismiss but hard to ignore. That's why many in the industry here in Canada have no choice but to take this very seriously.
The president's proposal is incredibly hard to understand.
In BC, home to many U.S. productions, the story dominated Premier David Eby's press conference.
Try to imagine, as an American, an option for two versions of Netflix, one where you get just a handful of productions, the other where you pay $50 a month or $100 a month and you get to see what everyone else in the world gets to see.
Domestically in Canada, the film industry is worth more than $11 billion annually. With this latest Trump threat, like in the movies, many plot twists could be ahead. As they say, to be continued. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
St. Clair College is entering the next school year with a $6.5 million deficit. Its president says the college is one of many schools impacted by a changing landscape. Last year, the federal government slashed international study permits by more than a third. It was amid concerns that the number of international students was contributing to housing shortages. St. Clair already suspended 18 of its programs back in February, and many of them were popular with international students. Funding to cover this year will come from the School Sustainability Reserve Fund. The purpose of that fund is to offset deficits when necessary. The college is mandated to balance its budget, but the president said that they decided not to do so this year. That's because the college needs to be ready to respond to possible new demand as a result of Canada's efforts to reshape its economy in the face of the U.S. trade war. A live look outside there. When we come back, the story of how an Ontario couple was stranded when their airline credit was stolen. Stay with us. Welcome back. Many migrant farm workers come to Canada on the promise of a better life, but some are met with deplorable working conditions, and now some are speaking out, but that can come at a cost. CBC's Tara Carmen explains.
Danielle Concha and Francesca Reyes left Chile, dreaming of a better life in Canada.
I leave my job there because I think here I have a really good opportunity, a better job, better house, better life.
Their first job was living and working on an Abbotsford farm. It wasn't what they expected.
It was horrible to see because the house where we live there was very dirty.
We work 12, 15 hours per day, 7 days a week.
Concha says he and his partner were hired to do quality control of fruit, sort it and clean it, but their contracts described them as farm workers. He and Reyes were paid the same as berry pickers, with no overtime or vacation pay, and then their contract was cut short. In 2021, they were 2 of 5 workers who complained to Service Canada, which launched an audit. Federal inspectors found no problems, But they never spoke to the workers.
So really coming forward is really challenging for workers. The fear of loss of employment is particularly high.
In this case, it seemed hopeless.
But this January, BC's Employment Standards Branch awarded the 5 workers close to $80,000 in compensation for unpaid overtime, vacation pay, and misrepresenting the length of the contract.
Yeah, a long time waiting for that.
Despite the decision, the Abbotsford operation where they worked is still able to hire foreign workers. The company told CBC that Service Canada has found our organization to be compliant across key areas and reserved the right to appeal the provincial decision against them. But Danielle and Francesca worry other farm workers are still stuck with no voice.
Many people don't know nothing about their rights.
They're speaking out for change, so others who follow in their path have a stronger voice. Tara Carmen, CBC News, White Rock, BC.
In Ontario, a couple's airline credit was stolen and used to buy a luxury flight for a stranger. As Go Public's Rosa Marcatelli explains, the airline is blaming them for the fraud.
We went hiking and
Bill and Sandra Barlow were celebrating Bill's 75th birthday with a trip to South and Central America. But 2 days before their flight home, they discovered someone had canceled their flights, and the credit was used to book a flight to Tokyo for a complete stranger.
Absolutely flabbergasted. How does something like that happen?
The credit was stolen from their Air Canada wallet, a digital account set up by the airline. The couple says they've never used or heard of, but the airline blames them.
They said basically, sorry, you should look after your Air Canada wallet, something I didn't even know I had.
The airline tells Go Public hackers accessed the Barlow's email, then used it to get into their digital wallet and steal their credit, saying no organization can reasonably be expected to accept liability for the security of customers' personal email accounts.
But a cybersecurity expert tells us there's no proof of that, and the airline can't know for sure if someone's personal email has been compromised without access to it. Plus, the expert says ultimately that travel credit was stolen from Air Canada's system.
Air Canada customers absolutely should be concerned how many other customers may be sitting ducks.
Air Canada wouldn't say how it knows the Barlow's email was compromised, saying that would jeopardize the integrity of its fraud investigations. And what about that mysterious Tokyo trip? The airline also won't say if it investigated the passenger who traveled on a ticket purchased with stolen credit. So, Go Public tracked her down in Las Vegas.
Okay, here's someone by that name.
She says she bought the ticket through a travel agent, but wouldn't provide the agent's name or proof of payment. She also says Air Canada never contacted her. All of it points to major gaps in the airline's investigation, say the Barlows.
My money was stolen, my seats were stolen, and they don't care.
The couple had to spend thousands out of pocket for new flights home. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
We'll be right back with Colette Kennedy after the break. Colette Kennedy is back with us now for more on weather. And Colette, we've been dealing with really up and down temperatures and weather conditions. And I'm going to even confess something to you. I put on a winter coat this morning, but also sandals because I didn't know what to do with myself.
I love that. Were you wearing socks with the sandals? Or
no, that is a big no-no in my household, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love it. And that is the kind of thing we have to deal with, is what do you wear? Do you dress in layers, and what do you need in the morning or in the afternoon? You kind of have to have everything handy at this time of year. If we look at where the daytime highs kind of landed, they don't look that far off. I mean, Hamilton was quite cool at 13, 19 though for us in Windsor. And then you look at Eastern Ontario and a pair of 20s, yes, having to do with more sunshine there and less of this rain that's been rotating around this area of low pressure. But at one point, the temperatures were really all over the place, and there was almost about, a 10-degree temperature difference because of pockets where we had wet weather or dense cloud. And so as we move forward through time this evening, we do have more of that counterclockwise rotation coming around this area of low pressure. So instead of it being a weather pattern where something's moving in from west to east, we've got this area down to the southeast of us, and it's pushing back towards the northwest. That's the counterclockwise circulation. So although we have some drier pockets, you can see not only some heavier rain, but some of those lightning strikes. So there are embedded thunderstorms in some of these bands. All of this going around this area of low pressure. Then we have a ridge of high pressure with very pleasant, not only pleasant, but warm temperatures back to the west. And then another area of low pressure. So this whole thing is what we call an omega block. It kind of looks like the Greek letter omega, right? And this area of low pressure, this upper low, is holding everything back for the weather kind of to move on through and kick on out. So it has been a little slow. It is going to leave us, maybe not tomorrow, but it'll start to go tomorrow into Wednesday. So dry for now. Just be prepared. I don't know if you need the winter coat, but you may certainly need an umbrella or at least a rain jacket, as this will keep coming on through as we go into tomorrow. Wet in the early morning hours. We may get some dry breaks, but we're really right on the cusp there, okay? So kind of thinking of it coming in waves, and then we finally see that sort of kicking out as we go into Tuesday. But just know any area where you do have an embedded thunderstorm, that's where instead of looking at 5 to 10 millimeters, it could be 25 to up to 40. 12 degrees for the low tonight, 17 for tomorrow. And then look at after that. Finally, once this thing leaves us, sunshine and some dry conditions for the rest of the period.
That is a good looking forecast. Thank you so much, Colette. And thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good night, everyone.